I think it would be best to start with your take on Adesanya Blachowicz, just because I'm going to look like an ass if I start saying something first. So if you say something smart, then I can adopt it. So why don't you lead off?
Well, mate, I can sound like an ass just like anyone. So my thoughts on this one is we're into the unknown territory, which is what I love about the UFC. You've got a guy that's naturally at around 185 going up to 205. So he's fighting someone that's technically supposedly around 20 pounds heavy, although the gap is probably a bit closer. So how is he going to transfer to that weight class? If you get hit by someone that's 20 pounds heavier than you, you're going to feel it. So not only that, Jan Blachowicz is renowned for being like Polish power. He's knocked out some big names. He has got powerful hands. That's undeniable. John Jones couldn't floor. Who did he beat for the title? Who did Jan beat for the title? Can you remember his name?
Jan's last fight here. I will tell you in just a second. So Jan, this website.
What was his name? God, I'm so sorry for forgetting his name.
Well, I'll have it in just a second. So it was his last fight was Reyes.
Reyes, that's it. So Dominic Reyes,
second round,
and he looked comfortable from the get-go. Now, prior to that, Sean, Reyes' last fight was against John Jones. I actually think he beat John Jones. He put it on John Jones the whole time, and then John Jones changed tactics and then went at him and kind of clawed some round back. It was super close. I actually thought he edged it, but it was very close. John got the nod.
Yeah.
Now Jan Blachowicz goes up against him, and Reyes just looks shaky. I don't know whether the moment got to him, whether it's Jan's power or not, but Jan made light work of it, to be honest. So if Izzy gets caught with one of those punches, I think anyone's going to be in trouble. But Izzy tends to be very elusive. He's very hard to hit because he's so technical. So, okay, no sitting on the fence. My gut feel is I think Izzy's going to do it because he's one of the smartest fighters out there. I wouldn't be shocked if Jan catches him, and I wouldn't be shocked if that rocks Izzy because of the weight difference. But I'm still siding with Izzy.
So my view on this is it's a strange one because I'm tempted to go with what everybody who's smarter than me says. And I've listened to a lot of interviews with a lot of fighters, UFC fighters who've weighed in on it. And the vast majority, barring one, there was only one fighter I heard that really gave a stunning review of Blachowicz in this fight. I hope I'm saying that right. Blachowicz in this fight, and that was Colby Covington. Is the only person who pretty much said he's going to flat out tag him. Watching these fights, so there's a few things I noticed, and Adesanya is so much fun to watch, and the fight against Gastelum was probably one of the best fights I've ever seen in boxing. That was incredible. And as Adesanya worked his way up, you could see him getting a bit more under control, a bit more balance, and he was very in that fight against Gastelum. You could see there's a lot of inefficient movement, and then when you get to his most recent fight, you could see he's really tidied that up, and he was very efficient in his final few fights. But in each of his fights, he was tagged. He has been tagged in every fight, and he does leave himself open, is what I've seen. Blachowicz, I didn't expect to come out of this feeling. I'm leaning towards Blachowicz. Blachowicz is very compact. He's very efficient. He's very calm. He's very workmanlike. And he is a knockout puncher. I mean, you can see that when he lays a hand on somebody, it's devastating. And in each of Adesanya's fights, it's taken until the only person he's really, I thought, tagged, and it took about 5 rounds to get to that point, was who was it? It was wasn't his last fight. It was a 5-rounder. It was Romero. Romero and Gastelum both win 5 rounds, but both of those, he was landing shots because he is such an incredible boxer. But it was once those shots were landing more and more, they were getting a bit more dazed and just a bit more pegged back by those, by the contact. Adesanya is not a knockout puncher, and I see one of two things happening here. Either Adesanya is going to win on points. I think if Adesanya can go the distance without being knocked out, I think he's going to have more scoring blows. I think that's going to be the case. Adesanya is very squirmy. He's very hard to even pin down. The one thing I was really impressed about is how when he's in a compromising position, he gets the fuck out. And he gets the fuck out fast. So he's very hard to pin down. I was impressed with Adesanya's underrated, and John Jones says he doesn't have a ground game. I was really impressed with his defense. It was against Romero, I think, where he was doing these reverse holds. He was being taken down, and he was doing these reverse maneuvers, accurate bad maneuvers to get control back and almost submit somebody. But the one thing I can't get around is in every fight, Blachowicz, even in the fight that he lost, it looked like it was a bit of a random punch that caught him off balance. It didn't even look like a proper knockout to a degree. And every fight, he's taken shots and he's taken them comfortably. And when he's gotten a hold of somebody, he's tagged them. He's really put them in a daze. And there's a big part of me that's leaning towards fourth round. Blachowicz is going to knock out Adesanya because Adesanya has been made available for punches in every single fight. And I'm kind of going with my gut on this. I'm going to say Blachowicz, and I'm probably going to be wrong, but I'm going to say Blachowicz knockout in the fourth round. And what's going to happen is, in my view, sorry, I'll let you go here in a second, but I want to hear what your take is on this. So right now, actually, no, let me bring it back to you because there's something I want to bring up in a bit. But I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think Blachowicz has a chance?
So what I love about fighting, of course he's got a chance. Like you're not world champion for nothing. Reyes beat John Jones. That's now John Jones has he went against Alexander Gustafsson, and people thought the first time they fought maybe Gustafsson beat him, but that was in John's coke days, and he wasn't training for that. They said he wasn't even going to camps, and the second best person in the world, although he got the win, he probably didn't. It was very close anyway. That's what I'm saying. Reyes was the only person I've seen that's actually, I think, technically beaten him. Now, Blachowicz ran through Reyes. I know this MMA math, and you can't just say that, equals therefore he's going to win. But, he's no mug. And I think you're spot on. And I could totally see him landing a punch and knocking Adesanya out because of the weight difference. I could see that. I'm just thinking that Blachowicz also went up a weight class. He used to be in middleweight, and he went up, and he's found some success at that weight. I just think Izzy has been so good. He's so clever, and he fights differently every fight. And I think he's going to be very much aware of the power that Jan brings to the table. And I think he's going to be very elusive, and he's going to be looking for countering. I just think he's got the kind of intellect over him, and range-wise, I think it's pretty close. He's not a big... Jan is going to be slightly heavy, but he's not going to have any reach advantage over him. If anything, I think with Lizzie's leg attacks, he might have a slight range advantage. So my point being, that slight ramble, Sean, is that I could totally see that happening. Yeah. I don't think it's a strong Adesanya for me. I'm just leaning that way.
What's pushed me the other way, some of the people I saw interviewed for this fight was somebody who's coached Adesanya for years. Is a Kiwi guy, beard. Don't know. And he was talking about, he was talking about his career. And Adesanya has always, if you were to pick fights where he's lost before UFC, his kickboxing career, it's always against bigger opponents he has had trouble with. And when you look at the fights that he's taken in his current division, he has had a pretty substantial height or reach advantage. And he's not had to really put himself in harm's way to that degree. Gastelum was the most impressive fight because Gastelum was trying to nullify that by he accepted he was going to get hit, and he wanted to get within that reach to lay some, and he almost knocked out Adesanya.
Yeah.
And when you look at the knockouts, when I've looked at the Blachowicz knockouts, they were all counter punches, or they were all like at the end of a combination or after a sloppy exchange. And he's very quick-handed when he gets in close. And I just see a world where Adesanya is not able to really get much going from a distance. I think Blachowicz is going to be quite wary of the leg kicks, and he's going to be ready to defend that. He keeps his hands up all the time, whereas Adesanya's hands are very low all the time. And I very much that's I'm going to go with my gut, but I'm just going to put a disclaimer out there. I know fuck all, and there's a part of me that says if I'm putting money on this, I'd put on Adesanya, but I'm going to stick with my gut on this because my brain keeps going back to Blachowicz winning this in the fourth.
If I put money on it, I'd go the other way. If I had to put money on it, because I think
the odds anyway.
The odds in the favor, because I think it's going to be skewed towards Izzy. I've not seen that, but I think that Brendan Schaub said this, and it's always stuck with me. And I think, and it's great advice, is that when you're betting, you want to go on the heavy-handed underdog. So if you can find some people that can floor you as an underdog, he said, I always put money on that. This is a classic Brendan Schaub underdog bet to take, because Jan, I think, can surprise people. He's not got the world behind him yet. He's not in that position. So, but you don't want to sleep on him. You don't want to take him for granted. And you know what will be interesting? I want to kind of throw this in as well, Sean, was that what if Izzy does win, though? Because Jan is the champion. He's beaten the champion. So what next? Does he stay around and then take on the second best light heavyweight or the third best light heavyweight? Or does he just say, right, I'm going full hog. I'm now putting on, 20 pounds and going to meet John in the heavyweight division? Because once you've beaten the top, they haven't kind of given him any warm-ups for light heavyweight. It's straight in the deep end. So if he does beat Jan, I don't really know the next step, but
this is maybe for me and for the audience who may not know this. So let's say he wins. He is now the light heavyweight belt holder.
And middleweight, yeah.
He can hold both then. So
correct.
Adesanya can choose to pretty much hold both of those and defend both of those. Because I think that's what would happen. If he decides to, and if it was me and I was in that position and he was comfortable fighting, because I think he's going to come in around 185, 190. He's made it very clear he's not changed any part of his training or methodology, Adesanya. I could see him holding both and defending both if he feels he can equally cover both of those divisions.
Yeah, it's who's left for him at middleweight. I want to bring up the UFC rankings here because
I'll bring that up
I'm
now.
not sure how much competition is left for him. I think, look, I want to state this as well. John Jones has my money if those two fight, without a doubt. I'd put my money on John Jones because John Jones has got a superior advantage on the wrestling side of things. And I think as long as John Jones doesn't try and stand with him, John Jones would be a nightmare for him. So it's the wrestlers that are really going to do that. So I'm just looking through here now. I honestly think Chris Weidman would be a bad matchup for Izzy. Chris Weidman is ex-wrestler under Matt Serra. Yeah, I think he'd be a real nightmare. And Chimaev, the guy but he's having some issues. He's out of the top 15 and he's got some issues with COVID. But he basically fights like Khabib, just so you know. So someone like that is going to be, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Someone like that's going to cause Izzy some issues. I'm not sure who else is going to. I don't know who else to stay around with in that middleweight division, Sean.
I think it's difficult too because I would think a big, if let's say Blachowicz was known to be a grappler and a puncher, in my mind that would be a big indicator as to who's going to win, because we haven't seen Adesanya, at least I haven't seen in the last handful of fights, have to get into a grappling situation more than a few minutes total. And if you were to get somebody that's superior in size, who's a superior grappler, I think that would be problematic for Adesanya because it mitigates all of his reach and all of his skill with, his kickboxing skill. And is there anybody in the heavyweight division that meets that I guess that fingerprint, that blueprint?
Grappling, yeah. I mean, especially with just weight alone, if you're grappling someone, I mean, that's why the weight class is. And if you grapple someone of equal skill level, weight, it all comes down to weight. And Izzy is probably, his takedown defense is brilliant, very high level, I would say. But if he is taken down, his movement on the ground, I would still say, is a lower level. Like, he's getting better and he's definitely working on it, but that is where you can see the potential weakness for him, is someone to exploit that. Now, John Jones has fought wrestlers. He's fought Olympic wrestlers like DC, and he actually took DC down. Like, no, DC takes everyone down, and he arguably out wrestled DC. They say like John Jones is strong as hell. Like, but the thing is with John Jones, he's got this attitude, this killer instinct, this like kind of Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan brain, which is like, oh, you want to stand up? And he's actually admitted it. He said they thought they were so good at kickboxing. They were like, why don't you just take him down? We're all waiting for you to take him down. It's like, I wanted to show that I could beat him on my feet. And that might be his undoing. So if he did fight Izzy, I'd be concerned that he'd want to try and outfight him on the feet to prove that, because the way to win is for him to take him down. So my money would be on John Jones versus Izzy.
It's very different. Blachowicz has a very different mentality. I was watching an interview with him before, leading up to this fight.
I like him.
His mentality isn't that I am the best and I'm gonna, like, he says I'm gonna win. That is his expectation. but he doesn't really spend too much time worrying about the hows. He just focuses on the technique, the fight. He doesn't focus on the fact that there's a belt or what it means. He's just next man up. I'm just going to, whoever it is, I'm under contract. If they put someone in front of me, I'm going to fight him. And he's not really, he's not really worried about how it's going to look. He's just whatever I think is going to get the job done best. That's what I'm going to do. And he came across as a very intelligent fighter as well, and very efficient in how he works. So I think it'll be a very interesting matchup.
Interesting.
This is why it's unknown territory. So
yeah.
For the record, for the betting, so you're saying it's going to be you said you weren't going to be on the fence, but you haven't really. You just said Adesanya, and you didn't say round or decision or knockout. So if I could ask you to be a little less on the fence, that'd be great.
Okay, I'm going to go with Adesanya points.
That's my second choice if I got to choose. And in boxing, it's always good, or boxing or MMA, when you have two options. That's always a great way to go. I'm going to say knockout Blachowicz in the fourth, and I'm going to say to everybody who's watching this, that is going to be an unpopular choice, but I'm going to stick to my guns here.
I don't think it is, mate. I think it's I could. If I had to have three guesses, that would be one of them. I think a later round knockout when Izzy might be just a little bit off guard. So I think
he's
it's
strong in the fifth round. Adesanya in his fights in the fifth round, he has been dominant in that fifth round. I think if he can get to that fifth round, he's in.
Yeah, mate. This is what makes it so compelling. I can't wait to watch this. We've got another comment.
So Peter said, Jan has great timing, but Izzy with his hands down throughout the fight, he is going to see every strike coming, and that's a big advantage for an elite striker of his caliber. So you're the expert here. What do you think about that?
I just want to make sure I'm interpreting this right. Is he talking about Izzy is going to see every strike coming? So it's great time, but Izzy with his hands down throughout the fight he is going to see every strike coming, and that's a big.
So he's saying Adesanya is going to have better vision throughout the fight because he's not. I think when you and Peter, correct me if I'm wrong on this. I think what you're saying is when you have your hands up, and that is very much the stance. You have very much a fairly static stance for Blachowicz moving forward, and he's not as able to move as when you look at Adesanya move and dodge punches. It's because he's that being open does help that. It does aid to his ability to move and sway, and those blows are glancing, which I've not heard that before. Is that something you've heard?
I'll be honest, mate. I switched off halfway through you talking that because I was rereading the sense. I'm just going to be
real.
Just
like, I'm not going to listen to this bullshit blah, blah, blah. From Sean. Yeah.
Whatever Sean's saying, blah blah blah.
Like I'm talking to my wife. Yeah.
I do apologize, but that's just the God's honest truth. So
I'm trying to explain it to you.
I think it's a big advantage for elite striker. Is he going to see everything? I thought he looked so unbelievable against Paulo Costa in his last fight. He looked so dynamic and fast, and I'm not sure anyone's going to put a hand on him unless you want to turn it into a grappling game. So that's where I get my opinion from. It's just how good he looked in the last fight, and I think he's just going to be too quick. Like Peter's saying here, he's just got too much of an advantage of his striking technique, and I think that power always has a chance, but I think technique will win through.
I think if Adesanya's leg kicks are really troubling Blachowicz, I think that's going to be a game changer for Adesanya. If Adesanya's leg kicks are easily kind of glanced away, if they're not really making much of a difference in that fight, then I think Adesanya's going to have to start taking some risks. Now, if he's a smart fighter, though, is he going to be playing for a knockout, or is he going to be playing for points? Because I think if I was, and again, I'm not an expert on anything, but if I was coaching Adesanya, I wouldn't want to see him get too close to Blachowicz. I'd like to see him win on points.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to go after him. I think he's going to be it's going to be counter. I think he's going to sit back. I think Jan is going to take some chopping down as well. That's why I've gone for the points decision, because I don't think he's going to knock him out. I'd be surprised to see that. Of course it can happen. I do believe he's got knockout power. I think he's shown that, and I think he could still knock a lot of people out in the light heavyweights, as he did in kickboxing at that weight. But Jan, I think, is going to take some wearing down.
He's not. I think Jan's going to be less intimidated. Not intimidated. Oh yeah, that's not the right word. No, but I think Jan's going to be less phased. Yeah, he's not going to be. Whereas I think Costa a bit was taken by taken back a bit in that fight. I rewatched that fight, and it looked like he felt like he was in a bit over his head. Not that he really believed that, but I think there was a little bit of doubt that creeped into his head after a few of those leg kicks. And I think
he lost it mentally.
Yeah. I think Blachowicz, he's so sound mentally. You know, he's not at all going to go into that ring with the same kind of nerves that maybe Acosta went into it.
The term you use, which I love, and I think it's so accurate, is that workmanlike.
Yeah.
He just shows up, do my job. Like, he's someone, he's going to give you a fight. Like, he'll be professional. He'll be trained. He'll be, he's going to be on it. You're going to have to be on your game to beat him. And he's going to take some wearing down, that's for sure.
Well, next week we will find out who was right about it. I'm really looking forward to next week's show, where we are going to be breaking it down, seeing how things go for both Adesanya and Blachowicz. And we'll probably have something to talk about as far as what's next, because Dana White is not one to shy away from prognosticating his thoughts. So we'll probably hear a bit of an insight into what he sees coming next.